Hi, my name is Regina, and I'm going to be discussing the pros and cons of the of what is referred to as zero tolerance policies. Definitions are as follows. The application of severe disciplinary measures to offenses regardless of the severity of the offense. Zero tolerance school discipline policies are generally considered to be those that mandate certain consequences, typically severe consequences, for specified offenses regardless of circumstances. Zero tolerance can be defined as predetermined consequences, most often severe and punitive in nature, that are intended to be applied regardless of seriousness of behavior. The culture of discipline across school systems has changed tremendously over the past several decades. Instead of handling discipline based off of the circumstances around the offense or taking into consideration the punishment on a case-by-case basis, there have been a number of historical events that have shaped what we see as zero tolerance policies today. During the Reagan administration, the term zero tolerance was first used and supported in the military as a reaction to drug use by sailors while they were serving the country. By the mid-1980s, this term zero tolerance was being used in legislation for policies in schools. The history of the term zero tolerance can be traced back to the 1980s when state and federal efforts came up against what is known as the war on drugs. The term zero tolerance started applying to environmental pollution, trespassing, and harassment. From this came the broken window theory. This was used as an analogy to show if there are two broken windows in an abandoned apartment building that go unrepaired, this will attract squatters. Once the squatters arrive, bigger crimes will begin to occur, such as more broken windows and fires, which results in the entire building being damaged. The theory suggests cleaning up minor offenses to discourage and avoid these smaller crimes morphing into more serious crimes in the future. By the 1990s, schools were using the policy for minor infractions such as smoking, disruptive behavior, and fighting. This increased the suspension rate from 1.7 in 1974 to 3 million in 2001. There was the addition of police on campus around the same time, which spiked the number of children that ended up in the juvenile justice system. This is known as the school-to-prison pipeline. By 1990, Gun-Free Schools of America Federal Act was put into place. This policy mandates a 1-year expulsion for having firearms on school property. 1994, Safe and Drug-Free Schools and Community Act was passed by Congress. Then, in 1997, more than 90% of public schools reported the usage of zero-tolerance policies. In 2000, increases in school violence when shootings that took place in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Bailey, Colorado, and Casanova, Wisconsin, resulting in the deaths of a total of 6 students and 1 principal. The media coverage implanted fear in the country, and public opinions were in favor of a zero tolerance and harsh penalties for students who brought weapons to school. In the face of such publicity, legislators did not wish to appear soft on crime and violence. This brings me to our first point, that zero tolerance policies were widely ineffective and fail to address the specific needs of students, thus doing nothing to affect actual rates of insubordination and safety. Zero tolerance policies have been shown to lack treatment fidelity, meaning that they are implemented with a wide range of inconsistency. Only a small amount of expulsions and suspensions are due to an incident in which students and school safety was actually threatened. Rates of suspension and expulsion are higher in schools which have principals who are in favor of zero tolerance policies. And there is no data to support that theory that zero tolerance policies reduce disruptive behavior and violence in schools. Data does show that students who are removed from school as a result of zero tolerance policies have poor outcomes in academic achievement. These students have lower graduation rates, are more likely to drop out of school, and will probably have some contact with the criminal justice system in the future. Zero tolerance laws incorporate high need of suspension and expulsion in school systems as a way to punish bad behaviors that range from bullying to having possession of cough drops and nail filers, which have proven to be ineffective school disciplinary practices, not tailored to the individual student. Instead, the data suggests that suspension, expulsion, and increased use of law enforcement in school settings are themselves risk factors for a range of negative academic and life outcomes. The right to an education, a free public education, was a right that working class at the turn of the century fought hard for. With policy expelling and suspending children from school, this is the right that's denied to them. What makes this even worse are the reasons behind most of the suspensions. Majority of the suspensions are for violations of the school policy that are ambiguous. As mentioned multiple times throughout this debate, minorities, children with disabilities, and children with multiple risk factors are the most impacted by the zero tolerance policy. Schools are supposed to treat all children as equal. This is an ideal that should permeate through all schools. The ideal school impart to students must be demonstrated on a daily basis. If there is a discrepancy between what should be portrayed as ideal and what the school is actually practicing, how are children supposed to have confidence in the school system and feel protected? The zero tolerance policies are not in sync with what's fundamentally American, which is being treated as equals and the ideal of fairness. In addition, it's disconcerting that a policy implemented by a school system would not be child-centered. Casey will now give her side on why zero tolerance has remained in place, even with this sobering research showing its ineffectiveness.
Okay. So Regina has explained the origin and the many reasons why zero tolerance policies are unfavorable, but why are they continuing to survive if there's data suggesting that they are ineffective? A lot of the responsibilities fall on the perceptions of the public. These policies essentially show the community that an institution strongly disagrees with whichever subject the zero tolerance policy enforces. For instance, let's say a parent has bullying concerns and comes into tour to enroll their child into a facility, and they ask, what do you do in instances of bullying? Stating that we have a zero tolerance policy for bullying is a great way to instill confidence in your facility as the choice that's going to look out for their child's safety. Safety is a parent's main concern. In 2015, a survey conducted by PISA was sent home with students across 11 countries. It was found that a parent's main concern was a pleasant environment and a school's reputation over concerns about academic achievement. The research found many parents consider safety as their number one concern when choosing a school, and this reflects in a parent's growing anxiety about bullying and violence in and around schools. With ensuring parents that safety is a main concern, institutions employ these policies as a good public relations tactic. It is a way to communicate to parents that they are on the same page with concerns of safety. They also avoid reputational issues, which was another concern of parents. By handling situations equally, they are limiting personal accountability of individuals within the school system that are creating the consequences for behaviors. So no one individual is suspending your child. The school has a policy that must be adhered to. Opposers of this policy state that repercussions should be individualized. However, a survey by Finley in 2008 found people who believe zero tolerance policies provide consistent guidelines for educators and for the public, who in many instances equate fairness with consistency. So to many people, consistent repercussions for all infractions translates to fair treatment, and larger institutions who need to please the most amount of people in order to avoid conflict and maintain their reputation continue to employ zero tolerance policies. Another perception supporting the continued use of these policies by Skiba in 2014 was the idea that by not reacting to lesser infractions will lead the way to bigger problems in the future. Specifically speaking, it was found that people that believe that violence and disruptive behaviors that are not addressed will lead to more intense violence and disruption in the future. Finally, stating as an institution that we do not have zero tolerance policy for violence, bullying, etc., is not going to be well received in the public's eye, as it suggests you will tolerate some form of this behavior. So although these are merely perceptions, and there is evidence supporting other measures of addressing concerns, institutions cannot necessarily change their stance until the public changes theirs.
What happened to Amber?
I don't know. How long were we going without Amber?